He said he didn't have a father. Not anymore. 3 years later, he begged to meet the man he once erased. My name is Wallace Granger. I'm 68, and I remember the exact day my son buried me without a coffin. It was the 4th of July, 3 years ago. Fireworks were going off in the background like distant gunshots, and my granddaughter, Emily, had just run inside with her sparklers, giggling. I was setting ribs on the grill, wearing the same apron I'd worn since my wife passed world's okayest dad. It used to be a joke. That day, it became a prophecy. Dylan walked out onto the porch with a beer in one hand and that forced smile he always wore when he was about to say something cruel and pretend it was logic. "Dad," he started, "we need to have a talk." The word talk is never innocent. Not when it comes from a son who's learned how to weaponize calmness. "You've been staying here since Mom died," he continued, looking out over the backyard, avoiding my eyes. "And it's been good. But Andrea and we need space. The girls need stability. This isn't working anymore." I didn't say anything at first, just stared at the meat starting to char on the grill. Then he added, "You're still strong. You can figure it out. I can't keep putting Andrea through this. Like I was a disease. Like grief was something contagious I should have gotten over by now." He didn't even wait for me to respond. He walked back inside, like he'd just asked me to pass the salt. 3 days later, my things were boxed in the garage, my room repainted, my toothbrush gone. Emily cried when I said goodbye. She was 9. She gave me a drawing, a stick figure version of us fishing by the lake. She wrote Papa Wally in pink crayon. I folded it into my wallet and left with one suitcase and a bank account that barely had enough for rent. They didn't know what I'd been through the past 6 months. They didn't ask. They didn't know about the call from the lawyer's office in Tallahassee, the one that came 3 weeks before Dylan kicked me out. They didn't know what name was written on the last oil rights document from my cousin's estate in Liberty County. They didn't know because they didn't care. I found a trailer for rent 30 miles outside Baton Creek. Moldy walls, busted AC, and a stained mattress that smelled like someone else's failure. But it was mine, and it was quiet. I started driving for a moving company. 16 hours a day. My back cracked like firewood every morning. But I kept going, because something had shifted inside me. Not rage. Not yet. But something cold. Something patient. In October, the first check came in. Oil lease bonus. $7,000. The land had sat untouched for decades. Now it was a gold mine. By February, I had 7 more offers. By June, I had a lawyer, a financial advisor, and a private P.O. box. I wore the same boots to work every day. I didn't tell a soul. I didn't buy a new car. I didn't splurge. Not yet, because I was watching. Dylan and Andrea bought a second car that year, a brand new Tesla. Then they remodeled their kitchen. Then came the vacation to Aruba. They posted everything online. #BlessedLife, Andrea wrote. Funny, the only blessing they had was never having to pay rent while I stayed in their house, grieving. They thought they'd moved on from me, until the day the letter arrived at their door. I didn't send it. Not directly. My lawyer did, from a firm Dylan had never heard of. All it said was, "Mr. and Mrs. Granger, a family matter of financial and legal significance has arisen, and your presence is requested for a private consultation regarding the estate of Wallace Granger. Attendance is mandatory. Date, Friday, 2 p.m. Location, Franklin and Tate Legal, downtown Baton Creek." That was the first domino. I didn't care if they came for love, guilt, or greed. They were coming, and they were walking straight into the house of a man they buried while he was still breathing. The law office was quiet, the kind of quiet that made you aware of every sound, a cough down the hall, the faint hum of an old AC unit. I sat in the conference room already when they walked in. Dylan wore a blue sport coat, too tight in the shoulders. Andrea had that expensive fake smile she used in Christmas photos. And the girls, they weren't with them. Of course they weren't. Dylan froze when he saw me. He expected a suit behind the table, maybe a probate lawyer, maybe a stranger with a last-minute inheritance. He didn't expect his father. Dad, he said, as if he hadn't rehearsed what he'd say all the way over here. I didn't stand. Mr. and Mrs. Granger, I said evenly, nodding toward the two empty chairs. Thanks for coming. Andrea was the first to sit, her eyes flicking to the stack of papers in front of me. Curiosity, not concern. That's who she was. Dylan stayed standing. What is this? He asked. What's going on? Take a seat, son, I said. You didn't want a father. Just consider this a business meeting. He sat down. I opened the folder. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a certified summary of mineral rights and land ownership, with my name printed in bold at the top. Beneath that, an earnings report that made Andrea lean forward. This can't be real, she whispered. Oh, it's very real, I said. I let the silence settle, let the air get heavy with implications. You're a millionaire? Dylan finally asked, voice cracking on the last word. Was, I replied. Now I'm something else. I watched his eyes search my face, looking for softness. Regret. A hint that I'd been waiting for this reunion like a child waits at a window. He found nothing. I called you here, I continued, to inform you that my estate is now in full trust. Not for you. Not for Andrea. Not even for Emily and Rose yet. I've set terms. What kind of terms? Andrea asked sharply. The kind that reward memory, I said, folding the paper in half and sliding it into my briefcase. You forgot I existed. Now you'll remember. Dylan stood. You can't do this. I already did. He took a step closer. Dad, come on. This is ridiculous. We didn't know. We thought you were struggling. If we'd known, you would have done what? Let me sleep in the guest room for another month. Bought me a sweater for Christmas? Andrea looked uncomfortable now. Not because of guilt. Because she couldn't control the room anymore. You're doing this to punish us, she snapped. I turned to her slowly. No. Punishment would be taking away something you already had. I'm not doing that. I'm just letting you live with what you chose. She scoffed, crossed her arms. So what, you're just going to die with all that money sitting in a vault somewhere? I smiled. Not quite. They didn't know I'd already donated to Emily's future anonymously. Her college account was now fully funded under a generic trustee name. Rose's too. I made sure of it. But I wasn't telling them that. Not yet. Dylan stepped toward the table again. Dad, I made a mistake. We made mistakes. But we're still family. I stood now. The chair scraped across the floor behind me. No, Dylan, I said. Family means something. It means standing by someone when they're grieving, not kicking them out so your wife can remodel. You buried me before I died. Now you're upset the ghost came back with a lawyer. He didn't respond. He just stared at me like he was realizing something far too late. I'm done here, I said. Enjoy the rest of your day. I left them sitting there, mouths half open, surrounded by the silence of a room that had just shifted power. That night, I got a text from Dylan. Just one sentence. Can we talk, just us? I didn't respond. I already knew the playbook. But the game had changed. And next time, I'd be the one drawing the lines. I didn't answer his text. Not the first one. Not the 6 that followed. By the end of the week, Dylan had called me 14 times. Left voicemails full of hesitation, half apologies, half threats. Andrea didn't call once. But the one that broke through came from an unknown number. A voicemail from Emily. Hi, Papa Wally. Mom and Dad have been fighting a lot. I heard my name. And yours. I just wanted to say I miss you. That was it. Just 20 seconds. Her voice was the only one that still reached a soft place inside me. But I knew better than to answer right away. Because if I broke character now, they'd win. Instead, I called my lawyer. Let's begin stage 2, I told him. Stage 2, he said, already clicking through files. The one with the house? Yes. We prepared everything over the past year. Quietly. Legally. My cousin's land in Liberty County had yielded more than oil. It came with a condemned farmhouse and overgrown fields no one had touched in 20 years. But I did. I'd spent weekends there clearing brush, pouring concrete, rebuilding the porch, fixing the plumbing, bit by bit in the shadows. Now it was a 2-bedroom ranch house with a wraparound deck and a trout stream 300 yards out back. I didn't build it for myself. I built it for Emily. I'd arranged for it to be held in a private trust under her name, locked until she turned 21 with conditions. Conditions I was about to make known. But first, I made one stop. The school. Her middle school in Westbridge was a red brick building I used to pick her up from every Tuesday. I waited until dismissal and watched from across the street. Not in a creepy way, just watching. She stepped out with her backpack, same red ponytail bobbing behind her, her glasses sliding down her nose. Andrea pulled up in the black SUV I used to help pay for. Emily hesitated before getting in. Good. That meant she still felt something. I took out the envelope I'd brought sealed, hand-addressed, with my lawyer's letterhead and walked to the front office. I need this delivered to Mr. and Mrs. Granger, I said. It's about their daughter's trust fund. The secretary blinked. Their daughter's what? They'll understand. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Dylan. I let it ring. Then Andrea called. I picked up. What the hell is this, Wallace? She snapped. Some kind of stunt? No stunt, I replied. Just a responsible grandfather securing his legacy. You're giving Emily a house? She's earned more kindness from me than either of you have. You can't just, I already did. Andrea's tone dropped. You're doing this to punish us. No, I said again. This isn't punishment. This is insulation. I'm putting one good thing in this family where you can't touch it. Click. She hung up. I poured myself a glass of water and sat back in my old recliner. The same one they used to say was an eyesore in their living room. Now it sat in my new place, near a window overlooking nothing but pine trees. Quiet. Still. Mine. That night, I got another voicemail from Dylan. Longer this time. Dad, okay. Look. I messed up. I know that. But this is going too far. You're tearing everything apart. Emily's confused. Andrea's furious. I'm trying to fix things, okay? You always said it's never too late to make things right. I stared at the phone a while before deleting the message. It was too late. Because now they were scared. They weren't losing me. They were losing control. And that's when I knew they hadn't even begun to feel what I'd felt. But they would. The cracks started showing 2 weeks later. I'd been keeping track from a distance. Quietly. Deliberately. That Monday, Dylan's name appeared in the Baton Creek Chamber of Commerce newsletter, not for an award, not for a speaking event. For a sudden resignation from his marketing firm. No explanation. No press release. Just a single line, effective immediately. I knew why. A week earlier, I'd sent an anonymous package to his company's compliance office. Inside, a USB drive with spreadsheets, screenshots, and one very pointed email from his personal Gmail account, the one where he used company resources to fund a side gig he never reported. I hadn't hacked anything, just downloaded from a shared family laptop I'd once been asked to fix during a power outage. That's the thing about being erased by your own son, you notice everything. And you start collecting. Andrea was next. I waited until the school fundraising gala, the one she chaired every year. The one where she wore designer shoes and gave speeches about community values. Halfway through the wine auction, the school treasurer stood up with an emergency announcement. Due to irregularities in the account linked to last year's gala, we've decided to postpone distribution of scholarship funds until further notice. People turned to look at Andrea. Her smile froze. I had printed bank statements delivered in unmarked envelopes to the school board chair. The one showing Andrea's repeated reimbursements for consulting services she never performed, billed from a company registered in her maiden name. No one had ever bothered to question it. Until now. She left the gala early, lips pressed tight, Dylan trailing behind her like a kicked dog. That night, I sat in my armchair, watching the stars through my front window. The woods were black and silent. You could almost hear the wind change direction when justice turned its head. And yet, something tugged at me. Emily. She'd written me a letter. A real one. Folded paper, handwritten in blue ink, nailed to the P.O. box I'd left at the bottom of her trust documents. Dear Papa Wally, I don't understand everything that's happening, but I want to see you. Not because of the money. I miss you. I miss our pancakes on Sundays. And how you made up bedtime stories about aliens with southern accents. I know Mom and Dad are mad, but I'm not. I promise. Love, Emily, I read it 3 times. Then I slid it into my drawer, next to our old drawing of us by the lake. The one with the stick figures and the pink crayon. She hadn't forgotten. But I couldn't rush. Not yet. Because Dylan and Andrea were panicking. And I needed them desperate. The next morning, I went into town. A small bank branch on Main Street. A friend still worked there, Leonard, a former loan officer who owed me more than a few favors. I need a copy of a mortgage file, I said after we exchanged small talk. 847, Sycamore Lane. He raised an eyebrow. That's your son's house, isn't it? Was. Leonard didn't ask questions. He just printed the summary and slid it across the desk. Fixed rate. 30 years. But here's the thing, it's tied to your original cosigner agreement from 2015. If you pulled your name from that deed when you moved out, it would trigger a full reevaluation of credit risk. I smiled. Would it now? That afternoon, I visited the courthouse and signed a quitclaim deed. It was quiet, legal, final. By Friday, Dylan got the letter from the bank. Due to changes in the property title, your mortgage is now under review. Monthly payment adjustment pending. He called me 3 times that night. I didn't answer. Instead, I sat by the lake behind my property. Fishing pole in one hand, coffee thermos in the other. The water shimmered under the early fall sun. The kind of peace you only earn after you've been buried alive and had to claw your way back up. They thought I'd fade. They never thought I'd rise. But the ground beneath them was shifting now, and the next quake would hit harder. By the time October rolled around, Dylan wasn't returning my calls. Not that I'd made any, but I'd had my lawyer reach out. Not with threats, with offers. The kind that sound almost too good to be true, because they are. We sent him a clean, sterile letter. Mr. Granger, due to unresolved matters regarding the property at 847 Sycamore Lane and your former cosigner's withdrawal from title, we are offering a structured opportunity for settlement before bank action is taken. This includes the option of a private buyout of the remaining mortgage at 62% of value, provided payment is received within 15 business days. That number wasn't random. It was just low enough to tempt him, just high enough to sink him. He took the bait. Sold his crypto, cashed out the emergency fund, borrowed against his car. Andrea posted a sponsored ad on Instagram for a discount teeth whitening brand. Desperate moves, all of them. And I watched everyone. The bank got its check. I bought the property anonymously the next day. The paperwork was clean. On paper, the house now belonged to a Shell LLC registered in Delaware. But we both knew the truth. Dylan and Andrea were living in my house. Again. Only this time, I didn't knock. I sent an eviction notice by courier. They had 30 days. No negotiation. No loophole. The first weekend, Dylan tried calling. Left me a message, low voice, full of forced politeness. Dad, listen. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Let's meet. Just talk. Man to man. Man to man. Like he hadn't once tossed my suitcase into the rain and locked the door behind me. Like I hadn't slept in the back of my truck for 2 nights before finding that Godoffel trailer. I deleted the message. 2 days later, Andrea called my lawyer directly. I'm not letting my girls get thrown onto the street, she snapped. This is harassment. He calmly explained the legal situation, the timelines, the binding nature of signatures. She cursed, hung up. Then the silence started. No calls, no texts, just the ticking of the clock. I wasn't gloating. Revenge, real revenge, isn't about laughing in someone's face. It's about removing your face from their life altogether. It's about letting them realize, day by day, hour by hour, what they used to have and who they pushed out to gain nothing. The day before the deadline, I drove by the house. Slowly, quietly. A moving truck was parked outside. Dylan was on the porch, arguing with a man in a gray hoodie. I didn't slow down, but I saw enough. The porch light I'd installed was flickering. The roses I'd planted along the fence had overgrown, wilted, dying. The home they'd inherited through betrayal was crumbling, piece by piece. They never learned to take care of what they stole. And now they were being evicted by the man they erased. Later that evening, I got a message on the P.O. Box email. From Emily. Mom and Dad are upset. But I just wanted to say, thank you. I heard you gave me a house? I don't know what to say. I love you. I still keep your bedtime stories in my notebook. Can I visit sometime? I sat with that message for a long while. Then I wrote back. Not yet, but soon. Finish your school year strong. Then we'll talk. Love, Papa Wally. Because this wasn't just a revenge story. It was a rebuilding, and the foundation had to be solid. But the storm wasn't done yet. Andrea was planning something, and I could feel it coming like thunder in the distance. They say a cornered animal is the most dangerous. Turns out, Andrea Granger was more serpent than spouse. The first strike came through the mail. A thick, padded envelope delivered to my lawyer's office. Inside, a lawsuit. Emotional damages. Elder abuse. Unjust enrichment. Filed on behalf of Andrea Granger against Wallace L. Granger. I read it twice. Then again. Elder abuse, I muttered. That's rich. My lawyer, Marcus, leaned back in his chair, scanning the documents. They're throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks. She's claiming you manipulated them financially. That your eviction was an act of emotional retaliation against your dependent son and grandchildren. Dependent. I barked a humorless laugh. Dylan's 39 and built like a linebacker. Marcus kept reading. She's also attaching medical claims. Says Emily was traumatized by the sudden destabilization of her home environment. That stopped me cold. Emily? I asked. She's dragging Emily into this? She's using her. That's what people like Andrea do. Weaponize what still matters to you. For the first time since I started this quiet war, I felt my jaw tighten with something hotter than calm. Not rage. Not yet. But something close. Counterclaim? I asked. Marcus nodded slowly. We can go for defamation and malicious prosecution. But I have a better idea. He opened a drawer and pulled out a flash drive. Remember the folder you gave me a year ago? The one labeled insurance. I nodded. It had started as a collection of screenshots and digital receipts. I kept it just in case. Because I knew people like Andrea. I ran some of those records against public databases. Turns out, Andrea listed your name, your social security number, as co-applicant on at least 3 consumer credit applications without consent. That's identity fraud. I leaned forward. Can we prove it? Marcus grinned. Already have. 2 days later, we filed a formal complaint with the state attorney general's office. By Friday, the lawsuit from Andrea was frozen. Under review. And I wasn't done. That same week, I sent a letter to the Westbridge Academy School Board. Not anonymous. Not threatening. Just facts. A detailed breakdown of Andrea's consulting invoices and the matching bank withdrawals using PDA funds over a 3-year period. I didn't accuse. I didn't editorialize. I just presented evidence. Let the system chew on it. By the end of the month, Andrea was quietly removed from her chair position. The gala committee dissolved. Her email access revoked. The school issued a vague statement due to internal restructuring. But people talk. And in a town like Baton Creek, reputation travels faster than subpoenas. The next time Andrea called my lawyer, her tone was different. I want to settle, she said. Confidentially. Marcus called me right after. She's offering to drop everything. Lawsuit, claims, all of it. In exchange for a signed agreement that you'll make no further inquiries into her finances. I thought about that for a long time. No, I said finally. No, she made her bed. Let her toss in it. Marcus paused. You're aware it might get ugly. She could still try to poison Emily against you. I looked out the window of my cabin. The lake glinted under a steel gray sky. Autumn was thinning the trees. She already tried, I said quietly. But some roots go deeper than lies. He didn't argue. That night, I found another letter in my P.O. box. From Emily. Papa Wally, I don't know why Mom is so mad, but I think she's lying about something. She told me you didn't care. But I saw the trust document. You care. I want to stay with you for the summer. If that's okay. Love, Emily, I read it once. Then again. Then I sat in silence for a long while. Not because I doubted, but because the storm was almost over. And my spring, was coming. But Andrea had one more trick up her sleeve. And she hadn't played it yet. I woke to the sound of tires on gravel. Slow, crunching, deliberate. It was just after dawn. The fog still sat low over the lake like a heavy breath. I looked through the front window and saw a black SUV parked at the end of the driveway. Andrea's. I didn't move, just sipped my coffee and waited. She got out slowly, heels crunching the frost-covered grass, wearing a camel coat too thin for the weather and sunglasses that didn't hide anything. She didn't knock, just stood at the edge of the porch, arms crossed like she still owned something. "Wallace," she said, loud enough for me to hear through the window. I opened the door but didn't step out. "Andrea, you've made your point. You've humiliated us. Congratulations." "Didn't need to humiliate anyone," I said. "You did that on your own." Her mouth twisted. "Emily wants to live with you. She's refusing to come home for the holidays. Says she's not going anywhere unless you're invited to." I said nothing. "You're destroying our family." I stepped outside now onto the porch. Cold air wrapped around us both. "No," I said quietly. "I'm just taking back what you all threw away." Her voice sharpened. "You're poisoning her, making her think we're the villains." I leaned on the porch rail. "You told her I didn't care, that I'd vanished. But she's not a fool. You lied too many times. The truth always finds its way back." She was breathing harder now, like anger was the only thing keeping her standing. "I will go to court for custody if I have to. I'll say you're unstable, isolated, unfit to care for a teenager." I didn't flinch.
"I have everything documented. Every payment, every threat, every letter you sent. I'll say you're manipulating her," she continued. "That this is all about revenge. Isn't it?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. She blinked. I stepped closer, now only a foot between us. "You think this is about money? Or property? Or lawsuits?"
"This is about the day I stood on your porch holding 2 grocery bags and you watched my son order me around like help. This is about the day you stood beside him when he told me to pack my things. I gave you 20 years of support," I said. "Paid your debts. Covered your wedding. Put food in your fridge. And the one time I needed grace, you gave me orders." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "So this is revenge." "No," I said. "This is clarity." A long silence stretched between us. She finally asked, "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear from Emily's decisions. She turns 13 this year. She chooses where she spends her summers. You won't poison that. And if I refuse?" I held her gaze. "Then I release everything." Her shoulders stiffened. "You wouldn't." "You know I would." She stared at me for another 10 seconds, her mask finally cracking. Then she turned and walked back to the SUV. Didn't slam the door. Didn't shout. Just drove off in silence. I watched her taillights vanish into the trees. Then I went inside and sat down, heart thudding hard in my chest. She'd fold. I knew it. She had too much to lose. But that night, something happened I didn't expect. I got a message from Dylan. "She's gone. Took the car. Took the savings. I don't know where she's staying. Emily's asking if she can come early. I don't know what to do. I don't even know who I am anymore." It was the first honest thing he'd said in 3 years. And for the first time since this all began. I didn't feel anger. I just felt tired. But it wasn't over. One last choice had to be made. And only one of us would walk away with peace. The lake was glass that morning. Still. Wide. Untouched by wind or memory. Emily was coming that afternoon, early, just like Dylan had said. A week before summer break, because she needed stability. That was the word the school counselor used in the email I received. I'd already made up the spare room, washed the sheets, stocked the pantry with pancake mix and blueberries, her favorite, hung the wind chimes she made when she was 7 on the front porch. But my mind wasn't calm. It was circling one last, unfinished thing. Dylan. He hadn't asked for forgiveness. He hadn't begged. He hadn't even really apologized. but heap and hollow in that last message, like a man who had finally looked in the mirror and didn't recognize what stared back. And the question gnawed at me, had I taken enough? Had I taken too much? I drove into town after lunch, not to visit anyone, just to walk, clear my head, old habits. I passed Miller's Hardware, where people used to wave. Now they glanced sideways, unsure of which version of me they were supposed to believe. The washed-up old man from 3 years ago? Or the quiet hammer that had wrecked the Granger name in polite circles? I walked into the post office. There was a letter waiting. No name on the front. Just one word written in shaky pen. Dad inside, a folded sheet. Ink smeared in places. I've been thinking a lot. About what I became. About the way I let you disappear from my life, because it was easier to blame than to think. I lied to myself, Dad. Said you were in the way. Said you were old and stuck. The truth? I was the one who was weak. I let Andrea turn me bitter. And when the money dried up, so did the illusion. I'm not asking for your money. I'm not asking for a second chance. I just want you to know I remember who you were when I was little. I remember the man who held my bike seat until I could ride without falling. If Emily gets to have that man in her life, then maybe something good can still grow from all this. I'm sorry. Dylan, I folded the letter carefully, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and left without saying a word. Later that evening, the sun broke through the clouds just as Emily's bus pulled into the lot near the lake road. She came down the steps in a hoodie too big for her, dragging a suitcase twice her size. When she saw me, her face lit up in a way that broke something inside me and rebuilt it at the same time. Papa Wally. I crouched as she ran into my arms. I missed you, she whispered into my shoulder. I missed you too, kiddo. We didn't talk much that night. Just pancakes, cartoons, a board game she'd brought in her backpack. Before bed, she handed me her drawing pad. She'd drawn the lake, the cabin, 2 stick figures fishing. This time, one of them had a beard, and behind us, a third figure smaller was holding the fishing net. Is that you? I asked. She shook her head. That's Daddy. You think he can visit too? One day. I looked at the sketch a long time, then nodded once. Maybe one day. She smiled, curled up in bed, fell asleep with the kind of peace only kids know. I stepped out onto the porch. The air smelled like pine and redemption. Somewhere down the road, Dylan was rebuilding. Alone, maybe, or not. That wasn't my burden anymore. I didn't need revenge now. I had something stronger. A granddaughter under my roof. A legacy that couldn't be twisted. A name that finally meant something again, not in court or in money or in whispers around town, but in the quiet trust of a child who chose to come back. I sat down in the rocking chair Martha once loved, looked out at the lake, and finally let go. They thought they'd buried me, but they planted me instead.